The United States is being murdered, and it's an inside job. Every department, every branch, every bureau and function of the federal government is being fatally corrupted or altogether dismantled or disabled. All this is common knowledge. But because it dribbles out in news stories about this specific incident or department, the reports never adequately describe an administration sabotaging the functioning of the federal government and also trashing the global economy, international alliances and relationships, and the national and global environment in ways that will have downstream consequences for decades and perhaps, especially when it comes to climate, centuries. Across the branches of government, the services that are supposed to protect us, nuclear stockpile monitoring, cybersecurity, counterterrorism, are being undermined, understaffed, or trashed. A different kind of protection that consists of public health, vaccination programs, food safety, clean air and water, social services, civil rights, and the rule of law is also under attack. The federal government that serves us is being starved, while the federal government that serves the Trump agenda and the oligarchy is glutting itself on taxpayer money, including the grotesque sums dumped on the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. military, now being warped into Pete Hegseth's twisted vision of a ruthless mercenary force. Hegseth has reportedly stood in the way of promotions for more than a dozen black and female officers. It is striking that the Trump team's constant refrain is that we cannot afford to protect the vulnerable or provide for the people, which is why the richest person in the world, Elon Musk, atop Doge, destroyed USAID last year, which has already resulted in tens of thousands of deaths from starvation and preventable disease. The Iran war is creating a fertilizer crisis in Europe, Africa, and Asia that may also result in widespread famine. Meanwhile, the former head of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, spent more than $200 million on an ad campaign starring herself before she was fired. Although there are far worse things about the utterly gratuitous and literally unjustified war on Iran, the fact that it burns through billions a day is striking, given that huge cuts are being made to environmental protection and national parks, and the Forest Service is being effectively sabotaged, while public lands are being offered up to fossil fuel companies and mining interests. The Forest Service headquarters are being moved across the country, which will probably cause many resignations, like the similar move of the Bureau of Land Management in Trump's first term. More than 50 Forest Service research stations are being cut, meaning more loss of irreplaceable ongoing research, data, facilities, and staff. Trump said in his droning Dollard speech last week, "We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We are fighting wars. It's not possible for us to take care of daycare, Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things. Your money, our public lands, our kids." Trump even bribed the builders of offshore wind farms, almost $1 billion to stop, just because he has a personal vendetta against the clean energy systems. The US used to lead the world in scientific research, including medical research, which had led to important breakthroughs in disease treatment and health. But all that has been slashed to the bone and beyond. This is murder. The old aphorism about how long it takes an aircraft carrier to turn around might be why the nation seems relatively stable, and why reactions have been inadequate. The full impact is yet to come. At some point, if the ship doesn't turn around, maybe it will start taking on water or listing badly, or hit an iceberg, or perhaps the iceberg has been there all along and is named Donald Trump. He has started a war for no particular reason. The word fun was deployed, that is further undermining the global economy he already badly damaged with his ever-fluctuating tariffs. Enterprises need to be able to plan, and tariffs that triple and melt away and pop up again, like his moods, undermine the ability to do so. In much the same way, threats that aren't carried out, talks that never took place, administration actions that the courts reverse become forms of political whiplash, jerking everyone and everything around, a show of force that is also a show of incoherence and inconsistency. We need to talk about the reconstruction a ravaged and corrupted country has to go through to return to functionality, but the offensiveness may be a distraction from the destructiveness. A whole sector of mainstream media now functions as spirit mediums, attempting to interpret Trump's actions to try to fit them into the context of competent leadership and coherent and consistent agendas. If there was a coherent agenda, it would be a destructive one, a malevolent one. The newly popular slogan, "The purpose of a system is what it does," is useful here, because what this system does is weaken, damage, corrupt, and harm. The idea that there's a coherent agenda driven by Vladimir Putin works in the sense that most of what Trump has done is good for the aging Russian dictator, while also bad for the US. It's also evident that Trump wanted to come back into office, in part to revenge himself on a country that in 2020 had rejected him, the way an ex-partner sometimes becomes a murderous stalker of the woman who dared to escape him, and specifically revenge himself on the individuals and institutions that had prosecuted him for crimes or otherwise thwarted him. Trump at some level knows he's failing politically, cognitively and physically, and wants to take it all down with him, the way that ancient rulers were buried with their slaughtered horses and servants. He's also, as mortality breathes down his neck, trying to grab some immortality by sticking his name on buildings and park passes and currency. But trying to understand motives is something of a hobby when the focus needs to be on consequences. We do not need to understand these criminals in order to try to contain and ultimately remove them. They will not last forever, and we need to think about what happens when they're gone, to talk about the kind of reconstruction the US will face for the first time since the Civil War. The reconstruction a ravaged and corrupted country has to go through to return to functionality, but not to return to the way things were. It's the anti-democratic weaknesses in our system that created the vulnerabilities that let this happen. The Electoral College and voter suppression that gave Trump a minority victory in 2016. The gerrymandering that has given a minority party majority power in Congress and state houses. A grotesquely corrupted and unaccountable Supreme Court, and the corrosive influence of the ultra-wealthy in a system that gives them power on a scale that is a direct assault on democracy. We need to imagine a more democratic, more egalitarian, more generous country, one that operates in recognition of an abundance of wealth that should serve all of us, and nature and future generations too, rather than is driven by the moral poverty of billionaires.